Governor, you said President Obama was acting like a petulant child when he expanded the background checks through executive action. You've used that expression a lot. Would you, as president, not do executive action, no executive orders?
No, I would, but I'd only do ones that are legal. I mean, you can't use executive orders in areas where Congress has already legislated and passed statutes. And you can't change statutes with executive orders. I mean, listen, I'm a governor. I wish I could. That would be wonderful to be able to do, especially with me when I have a Democratic legislature. I'd love to change statutes with executive orders, but you can't. And what you learn is you got to work with the people that are elected to the legislature, the Congress, and he's not doing that.
Why isn't this just leadership, though? He's using every possible method he can to get what he wants. You've talked a lot about leadership.
Dictatorship's not leadership, John. And he's acting like a dictator and a petulant child. Let's remember something. What I mean by that statement is, in 2008, he came in with it all. Huge majority in the House, filibuster-proof majority in the Senate, and the Republicans only had 21 governors around the country. Since that time, we're up to 31 Republican governors, big majority in the House, majority in the Senate. His policies have been rejected by the American people, but he doesn't want to hear that.
Let me ask you a gun control question. Donald Trump has suggested getting rid of gun-free zones in schools and on military bases. Would you agree with that?
Well, listen, I think for the military, and I've said this before after the attacks that we had earlier in Tennessee, it seems ridiculous to me that military folks can't carry a weapon with them. They're trained to do it. They're the best trained people. And so I would certainly be in favor of our military folks being able to carry weapons in those circumstances. And on the gun-free school zones, I think that's something that each state should be able to look at on its own.
Let me talk about your record on assault weapons. When we last talked, you said that originally you wanted to keep an assault weapons ban, said those who wanted to get rid of it were crazy. You said since then you'd learned as a prosecutor, you'd evolved on that issue. In 2009, though, you were still a supporter of the assault weapons ban. That was after you'd been a prosecutor.
No, what I said at the time was that I was not interested in debating or changing, because I knew I couldn't, New Jersey's gun laws with a Democratic legislature. If I had my choice, John, we would be a state where you could apply much more easily and receive much more easily a carry permit in our state. We're a may issue state, not a shall issue state. We should be a shall issue state so people could defend themselves.
When you were in that race with John Corzine in 2009, he said Christie stands with the NRA, and your campaign put out a fact check and called that a lie. And then your campaign said this: Chris Christie supports the assault weapons ban and all current gun laws. He opposes attempts to permit conceal and carry laws in New Jersey. Hardly the NRA position. So that seems different than where you are now.
Yeah, it is. And again, John, you learn about these things over time. And I've learned about this over time in New Jersey. I've grown up in a culture in our state of very, very vigorous anti-gun laws. As I've traveled the country as RGA chairman, as I've traveled the country as a governor, I've learned a great deal about this. And my actions as governor of New Jersey have been exactly where I think they need to be. When these things involve public safety, I'm for public safety. But if they're laws that are just going to make legislators and governors feel better, they shouldn't be put into place and infringe Second Amendment rights.
But so the evolution is more recent than just when you were a prosecutor?
It's an evolution that's gone on over time. Absolutely, John.
Would you say you stand with the NRA?
Listen, I stand with anybody who believes in protecting the Second Amendment and protecting public safety, and whether it's the NRA or other organizations like the New Jersey Pistol Club or others, I stand with organizations who want to make sense between public safety and our Second Amendment rights, and I think they do.
So just going back to that ad, though, you stand with the NRA?
Well, I mean, listen, the fact is that if the NRA, I'm not on every issue, but on the issues, you can tick them down issue by issue, and I'll be able to answer them for you. But I'm not going to say I stand with anybody, any particular interest group, and give them a blank check. That's not what leadership is.
You are a lawyer. You were a federal prosecutor. Is Ted Cruz legally eligible to be president in your view? Your legal view?
It appears to me he is.
You gave a speech this week saying that you understand voters are angry, but that it's time for them to pick a president, that they shouldn't just pick somebody out of anger. Is that the way to get their vote? If they're angry and sounds like you're talking about Donald Trump. If they're angry and they elect Donald Trump, aren't you going to be, how successful are you going to be telling them, hey, you're angry and you're not right about who you want to support?
No, that's not what I said. What I said was, listen, anger alone is not a solution to our nation's problems. That we have to channel that anger into a place where we pick someone who can actually fix the problems that are making us angry. And so part of the bigger theme of that speech, John, was calling our Republican Party to our similarities and to stop emphasizing our differences, that we need to bring ourselves together in order to beat Hillary Clinton, because every time we divide ourselves, we make it easier for Hillary Clinton to defeat our Republican nominee next November.
You said showtime is over, but you put on a pretty good show.
Yeah, but game time is on now. And now's when you have to perform, right? Showtime is a time when everybody gets to judge you and look and you're prancing around the stage. Now it's game time, and we got to pick a president, and we got to pick somebody who can beat Hillary Clinton. And I'm the person who can beat Hillary Clinton.
The competition has gotten a little tougher between you and some of your rivals. You said Marco Rubio is trying to slime his way to the White House. When a super PAC running an ad said that you supported Common Core, you once supported an assault weapons ban, and that you donated to Planned Parenthood, which one of those is wrong?
Well, I never donated to Planned Parenthood, so that's wrong. Secondly, for him to be trying to characterize my conservative record in that way is contrary to what Marco himself said. Marco himself has said that I was a conservative reformer in New Jersey. So here's the thing. I'm not going to spend my time talking about Marco Rubio, okay? If Marco wants to think that, this is the guy who stood up and really lectured Jeb Bush on the debate stage. So someone's told you that by criticizing me, it helps you. Well, apparently that same someone is now talking to Marco. I'm not going to fall for that. You saw my response to Marco. It was to put out an ad where I talk about the dangers of Hillary Clinton being president. Fact is, I'm going to keep focused on defeating Hillary Clinton. Marco wants to continue to say stuff about me. I'm happy to stand by my record of having made decisions.
So just on the Planned Parenthood, never donated, never supported.
No.
Another challenge to you, and conservatives in New Hampshire are bringing this up. They say that you're not strong enough on judges. They said you supported a Democrat as Chief Justice in the New Jersey Supreme Court, and you voiced support for Sonia Sotomayor on the Supreme Court. What's your response to that?
I didn't voice support for Sonia Sotomayor. Secondly, on the Democratic Chief Justice, and I got 2 Republican justices in return. See, this is what folks don't understand enough to deal with the Democratic Senate. The fact is that the Democratic Chief Justice got me 2 Republican justices that they had been holding up for 2 years. And we now have more Republicans. We have 3 of the 7. We now have, on our court, John, so we now have, of 7, we have 3 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and 2 independents. We now have a majority of Republicans on the court for the first time in recent history. And so I think it was a pretty good trade to get a majority of Republicans on there. And otherwise, we wouldn't have had either of those 2 Republicans on the court.
You're here at an event to talk about poverty. Why don't candidates talk about poverty very much on the campaign trail?
It's a difficult thing to talk about. Fact is that the federal government has so bollocksed up this effort to try to combat poverty by being too involved that a lot of folks are uncomfortable with the topic itself, and they don't know how to talk about this in real terms because they've never managed it. The fact is that in New Jersey, we've doubled the earned income tax credit because what I want to do is to value work again, to reward people for work. There are people in my state who say to me, well, Governor, staying on all the government programs, I make more than if I went out and got a job. Well, that's why I doubled the earned income tax credit. So those people who decide to go out there, they're going to be making money, more money working than they're going to be sitting on their couch. That's the way we've got to do these things. Give work incentives so that people get back to work, because we also know there's an intrinsic value to the soul in working, not just what you get in a paycheck. But if they're going to get kicked out of their apartment, their kids are going to be on the street because they're making less money working than they were on the government dole, they're never going to do it. We have to make sure that gets reversed.
Some people say that there's not much talk about poverty because the poor aren't going to vote for Republicans.
Now, I don't believe that's true. Listen, I got 61% of the vote in New Jersey. Some really challenged folks in New Jersey economically voted for me in 2013. The fact is they want hope. And here's the other thing. I'm a Republican who campaigns in places where I'm uncomfortable. I go into African American churches. I go into the barrios to small Hispanic businesses. We have gone and campaigned in all of the major cities in New Jersey. Got support from Democratic African American mayors for re-election. The fact is, because I go there and I listen and I empower those folks, and we need to do that as a party if we're going to be a national presidential party again, and that's the kind of candidate I was in New Jersey, and it's the kind of candidate I'll be as president.
Medicaid helps the poor. You expanded it under the Affordable Care Act, so too did John Kasich. When Kasich in Ohio did, he said that this was about being able to say to St. Peter at the pearly gates that you'd helped people who were poor, not, that was going to matter more than keeping government small. Do you see it that way?
No, the way I see it is it made money for New Jersey. The fact is we already had such a large and expansive Medicaid program that by taking the expansion, that we actually did better for the taxpayers of New Jersey, which is my first job as governor. Now, if I were president, I wouldn't have expanded Medicaid, but that wasn't my choice. And as governor, my job is to represent the people who have elected me. And so we've expanded Medicaid in our state, but really what it did was just have the federal government pick up more of the tab that the state was already picking up. We made about $220 million on Medicaid expansion, which helped us to do other things like cut taxes and like do things like the earned income tax credit for people. So that's why I did it. I did it because it made fiscal sense for our state.
So you don't think Medicaid helps the poor?
Oh, of course it does. But we already had a huge program, John. We didn't need the federal expansion. We were already protecting a lot of people in New Jersey. What I'm saying is we were paying 50% of that. Now we're paying none of it. That's a smart thing to do as a fiscal manager in your state and allows you to do other things. That's why I expanded Medicaid, not because I philosophically agree with it, but because I'm representing the people of my state. And what people out there need to know is that's exactly the kind of president I'll be. I'm going to be there for you first. Put your interest first, not the political interest first.
All right, Governor Christie, thanks very much.
Thanks, John.